Well, hey, how's it going? Right on, right on. Well, welcome to the neighborhood bike shop. And this is part two of Arlo's rebuild of this Trek 8700. Now, this bike is a composite bike. It's got carbon top tube, down tube, and seat tube, and aluminum lugs everywhere else. And they have separated. And after consulting several other bicycle experts, they came to the same conclusion as I did, that this frame is too dangerous to continue riding and needs to be replaced. I consulted the customer agreed. I have a frame that will replace it, will be even better and at a fantastic price, like 50 bucks for the frame. Don't tell anyone. Anyhow, I have to take the headset and forks, stem, and bars off of this, and the bottom bracket out of it, and then transfer them over to the other bike. So let's get that going. Oh, by the way, I was going to show you the damage that's up on the stem and the reason why we decided that this frame was too dangerous to ride. Anyhow, let's do this. Right on. Okay. After inspecting this frame, we can see these cracks where it's separating. Okay. After showing these to several different people that are what I consider bicycle experts, way more experienced than I am, they came to the same conclusion that I did, that this frame is just too dangerous to use. So I'm going to replace it with this frame. Right on. But I got to take some parts off of this bike first. I got to take the stem and headset and forks off, and I also need to take the bottom bracket out, but they'll get swapped over to the new bike, and we'll start building it up. It should be awesome. Yeah, one bike to a new bike. I think the colors are going to match up really well. I think this is going to be a beautiful little custom build for Arlo. All right, so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this headset apart and the stem off. So I'll grab my handy dandy tri wrench, which usually has everything I need on it all at once. Just going to loosen the top cap. Then loosen the stem head tube bolts. Should get some separation, we do. Now ensuring that the fork doesn't fall out, taking out the rest of the threads on the cap bolt, stem cap bolt that is. Stem cap and bolt. Stem and bars. Spacers. Oh goodness, we have integrated bearings on this headset. I need to be exceptionally careful here, because I already felt some fall through and into my hand. Okay, there's one missing. Now I'm going to push all of these bearings out of here into my hand by covering the bottom side. Lift this up a little bit. So making sure I don't drop any of these little loose bearings, I'm pushing them into my hand on the underside of the cup. They're trying to stick to my fingers, which means that they have a chance of falling over the top. Oh my gosh, like that one. This is not nearly as easy as you might think, because they have a way of sticking the stuff on the way down. Okay, I'm gonna put these bearings aside. Double check what we've got on the bottom. Make sure that nothing else has accidentally fallen through the tubes. And now I'm going to check what it looks like here for these bearings, because I don't know if they're loose. Oh, they are not loose. Thank goodness they're in a cartridge. And I can take them out. Place them facing up this way. Okay, now I'm gonna pound this headset out, or headset cup, bearing race, and this one out, and then install them on the new one. Let's do that. All right, to remove these headset cups, I'm going to insert my extraction tool into the headset, slide it down until it locks on the edge of the cup below, down here. So this slid in, expanded out, and then hits on the edge of this cup below. And I always start these things with a rubber mallet. But to be honest, sometimes it takes more than a rubber mallet to get these things out. Like, sometimes it takes a bit more motivation. Anyhow, let me, okay, now we're focused on that. Getting any movement. No movement whatsoever. Go to extreme motivation. And we have motivated the bottom bearing cup, bearing race, this guy, to come out. I'm going to place him just for practical measures. I place all of my assemblies as close to an exploded diagram on my layout table as I can. So the bottom bearings came out in that race. I'm setting that straight over the top of it. I counted my bearings on the top and they were an even number, which is a good sign. And I think that they'll be fine. Now I just need to pull this race out of the top. And to do that, I'm gonna flip it upside down and around the other way. So fast forward. Done, fast forward. Okay, now, again, my extraction tool. Squash it down so it fits inside the head tube, which is important. If it doesn't do that, you need to bend your the edges of your tool out. Make sure it slides down and connects firmly with the lip above this one, because sometimes there's going to be like weird little geometry on the inside of head tubes, especially ones that are weird. They sometimes will have a lip. It's like a false lip, so you will end up just pounding and pounding and pounding. Nothing will go anywhere. But if you feel by sticking your finger up here in the hole, maybe two, just depends on you, you can feel that it's engaged the proper place. And because the motivation on the bottom cup took the heavy hammer, I'm just going to go straight to the heavy hammer and get this done. And just like that, we have the top bearing race out. Cool. Now let's remove the bottom bracket. All right, now to remove the bottom bracket, I get my bottom bracket removal tool, which has the right spline count. And I've got a 1/2 inch drive hooked to it. And I know that these are all gonna turn forward. And because I don't like to fuss around with stuff, I put a cheater on it and away she goes. Once it's been broken free, the opposite side should turn easily. And it does. So I'm going to loosen it up a little ways. Flip it over, other side, same thing. Now the reason I'm splitting it up into two is because if there's any kind of weird little thing happening with the bottom bracket, I want to know about it as soon as I can. and be as gentle as I can, especially when I'm restoring vintage bikes. Parts are not, you can't just get some parts sometimes. Sometimes the parts you have is all you have. And this feels like it's free. There's the bottom bracket main cartridge. Flip the rotation on my ratchet. And there's the opposite side cup. And as we can see, this is pretty rusted out, but the bearings still feel very, very smooth. So even though I can tell that this bottom bracket has been subjected to quite a bit of moisture in it, I will just clean this up a bit and then pray that the new bike gets taken care of better. Anyhow, so that is the disassembly of this Trek 8700, and I don't think anything else is coming off of it. Now it just kind of becomes wall art. It's a beautiful bike, and I wish we could have saved it. I think it would have been a rad build, but lost a little ego. Now we move on to the new frame. All right, the very next thing that I'm going to do on this bike is I'm going to just clean it. It's raw, it's empty, there's no parts on it at all other than the rear derailleur hanger, which I'm going to dag later on. But other than that, this is just the perfect time to clean the whole bike. So instead of boring you with you guys, I'm going to do the magic and make it clean. All right, to freshen up this bottom bracket that's got rust on it, I am taking Coca-Cola and putting some in a little cup. I don't need much. This is my supply for my bike shop. Like, I don't drink this. This is just for the bike shop. Weird, huh? Right, so I get a little Coke. And then I shut the door so we can't hear the neighbor mowing their yard. Then I take some regular, just cheap aluminum tin foil that you get from, like, you know, just anywhere. It doesn't have to be expensive, but I think it's important that it is like pure aluminum tin foil. And I kind of crush it up into a ball and take the part that's got all kinds of rust on it. I get me a drop rag so I can keep from spilling soda all over my floor. I dip the tin foil into the Coca-Cola, and then I rub. And I know there might be some people saying, aren't you getting a residue from the soda? And the answer is yes, you do. You absolutely do, but it's not a whole bunch. If you can remove the majority of the accumulated rust, you can just wipe off the rest of the assembly with a regular simple green or a diluted solution. Then you can get the rest out or off without leaving a whole lot of residue, which is cool. And this is going to be hidden inside of the bike, so it's not really all that important to get it perfect, but I like to be meticulous on what I work on. So I put it through a little bit of an extra outing, and we have a much cleaner bottom bracket. Now from here, I'm gonna do my plumber's trick where I use Teflon tape on the threads on the bottom bracket assembly to keep it from creaking, but maybe I'll show it to you. Anyhow, one moment. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm just putting Teflon tape onto the threads of my bottom bracket. And I'm spinning it in such a way that when I tighten the bottom bracket into the frame, that it follows the direction that I'm spinning this tape. By doing that, you get less creaks out of the bottom bracket. The bottom bracket quite often will end up creaking on especially old bikes, and this just gets rid of that creak super easy. So anyhow, I'll do the same on the reciprocal cup on the other side of the bottom bracket and just tighten them up. Okay, so just like on the other side, I'm just putting the Teflon tape on the reciprocal bottom bracket cup. And it's usually not too bad. I usually put a solid single layer at least. Sometimes I'll go to a double layer, but you don't always need to. And I dropped it, hang on. Right on. So boom, it's just got, you know, Teflon tape on the threads, just like a plumbing application. Now it's just put the bottom bracket in. All right, now I'm just gonna put my bottom bracket in, my Teflon tape, threaded the appropriate way. Remember, on this side of the bottom bracket, it's gonna be counterclockwise, and you do wanna get it just right. You don't wanna be fighting it too much. You want it to be pretty much where it needs to be. And be careful not to cross thread this stuff, because once you cross threaded it, you've basically ruined the frame. I don't trust how that feels. I still don't like it. Time out. Okay, time back in. What I'm doing to make sure that I get everything aligned right is I'm putting the opposite cup in a little ways, which we'll use as a guide for the other cup. Do not like that. Never force it. Always figure out what's going on with it first. I'm going to take a moment and figure out what's going on with this first before I come back. All right, what I ended up having to do is to take like a little scratcher, and then I had to chase the threads all the way through for about the first 2 or 3 rings in to just make sure that they were clear of debris, and that if there was any little metal flakes of the thread trying to change direction, cross thread, that it couldn't. Once I had cleaned those out, then I screwed in the bottom bracket completely on the other side just to chase all the threads, and then recovered it with Teflon. So now we're back to this point. Oh gosh. Well, if it's not going to let me do it that way, I'm going to take the Teflon off and just get this thing seated. Once I got it seated, throw a single wrap of Teflon halfway through. And then continue with the installation of the bottom bracket. Whew! That was a challenge. But if you take your time and you're careful, you can avoid some very bad problems. Like someone who's not paying attention to what I just went through could have destroyed this frame. And instead, we have a bitchin' frame with a sweet bottom bracket in it. Nice. Double check. Nice. On to the next part. All right, now I'm gonna press in the top bearing race into the headset. And I'm just gonna put a little bit of grease on the inside of where these headset caps are pressing. It makes them press a little bit smoother, and it also creates a barrier between rust and other things that keep them from like kind of bonding together in some kind of weird way. Anyhow, so I stick a little bit of lube in there. Then I take the top bearing race, and because it doesn't fit any of my pre-adjusted situations, I'm just going to use the flat of this, get it up close. And once I start beginning to put any kind of pressure on everything, I'm trying to center everything, just so it looks pretty much on center. And a lot of this stuff will kind of self-center, but you definitely don't want to force it if it's not going in straight. So take an extra second, make sure it's going in straight. That's what I'm doing here. Just making sure that we're pretty much lined up on the bottom, and that I can press this bearing race into this frame with no issues. Now I don't need to like get all gorilla on the pressing in. You kind of feel when you've hit the final extent, and you don't need to put like 100 pounds of torque onto it or anything like that. Just get it snug. It's not going to be going anywhere. If anything, it's going to loosen up over time. So snug is good enough. Release a couple threads. Time for the bottom one. All right, time in. What I needed to do was just clean out this bearing race, this headset cup, make sure it was nice and clean and ready to be installed. I've already installed some grease on this side, so I'm going to go ahead and put my tool into the hole, put the race into the hole, okay. By spinning it that way, it was a quick way of making it kind of snap into the next available location. And again, I'm trying to center everything because I want it to press this in as straight as it possibly can. So take an extra second and double check. Looking good. There. Press it into location. Again, doesn't have to be gorilla tight. And boom. There are the cups set on the headset. and on to the next part. Now we're going to throw some grease in these cups. Remember that this top cup is a loose bearing cup. So I'm actually going to put a little bit extra grease up here. Basically just like cake icing, to make sure these bearings don't go anywhere. But that grease won't go anywhere, so I'm going to install the bottom bearings first. So first I need to get them cleaned and lubed, and then we'll install them. Okay, now I am lubing the bottom race. And it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. You don't have to worry about putting it an exact bead of grease in the exact location. Just get enough grease on there, because you want it filled up with grease, and you definitely want it to be able to fill up the expanses between the bearings. Like that, all squishy, squishy. And then the next thing I'm going to do is, first I'm going to go back and I'm going to put each one of those individual bearings back into here, which is quite a bit of a challenge, because you have to make sure that they don't fall through while you're doing it. And once I do that, then the final step will be to mate the top and bottom of this fork together. It's not as easy as the modern ones that have, like, you know, all the bearings in like a little cassette or race, but it still works really good. Anyhow, that's the next part. So after I packed the top bearings and individually placed every single one into the bearing race very carefully, now I'm getting ready to assemble the entire thing. These kinds of headsets are tricky to do, but they work really, really well when they're done right. All right, now assembling the front fork headset bearings. Very, very gently sliding these up together. We don't want to dislodge any of those bearings that are free floating on the top. Top cap goes down. The securing clip. The next part of the assembly, and we're going to go stripe, Tioga, stripe, Tioga, stem. Okay, we've got too much clearance on the top of that stem, so we're going to reduce this down to a single Tioga spacer. So I want to get as much purchase on the stem as I possibly can. Perfect. Now, the stem top bolt and cap. And then tightened up and preloaded. Okay, really only need about 5 Newton meters on these guys to get them preloaded appropriately. I'm going to double check that I've only got 5 Newton meters using one of my favorite tools. I think I've said it many times before. Okay, we weren't there. Now it's preloaded appropriately. Sweet. All right, sweet. I will double check the torque on these things, and then there we go. We got the bottom bracket on and the headset on. Now to have fun. Well, right on. After getting the headset, stem, bars on, and the bottom bracket in, I think I'm going to go ahead and shorten this video so it's only like a half hour long, a little bit more than a half hour long, because I don't want to bore you guys with this stuff. And instead, I'm just going to make another assembly tomorrow where I'll finish up the rest of the bike. Anyhow, thank you for joining the Neighborhood Bike Shop. I hope you come back and visit us for the third part of Arlo's rebuild. Anyhow, thanks. Love you guys. Have a great day.